Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to take a look at the build meta of Siege of the Atlas and go over the best builds currently on offer, as well as the new rising stars you may want to look into for your second or third build, as the endgame meta for builds is completely shaken up on the high end of things. So if you're looking to craft or start looking at your next build, this is definitely the video for you. And if you're looking for that tactical reroll after having a bit of a rocky league start, this will highlight the absolute powerhouses which you should maybe look to. But first, if you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit that button. It would really help out, and chuck the video a like if you enjoy it. So let's get into it. So I've done extensive research. I've trolled the streams, talked to all of the content creators as well as the guys in the shadows, and I've got a bit of a comprehensive list here on what is the most powerful for certain things in the game. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit about here is Phys Trapper. So Phys Trapper is alive and well, and after taking a look at Cloudy, the streamer's Phys Trapper, I can say it's better than ever, if not more powerful than before. The damage is absolutely ridiculous, and it's not actually as expensive as it has been in the past. So overall, you can get an absolute powerhouse of a build on a league starter setup going and scale it on to being one of the best bosses in the game. So how good are we talking about here? Well, it's important to emphasize that Phys Trapper is a bossing based build. This build is most at home doing the new bosses with high quantity. Maven, invitations are okay, but it really wants to get in there and do bosses without too much travel time or clear, as it really does excel at insta-phasing all bosses, and this is essentially the new miner. It has insane damage, and the AoE is absolutely ridiculous. So the seismic track changes actually increase the overall AoE and spread of the pulses of the actual trap. Now, to kind of give you guys an idea, when I was watching the Cloudy stream and having a bit of a look at the build here, when he put his seismic traps down, it actually covered the entire Maven arena, the entire thing. That's what we're talking about here, and it would instantly phase the boss. Now, of course, Cloudy has some pretty insane gear here on his character, but he did league start this, and there's plenty of guides out there to show how it's done. So overall, if you're looking for a bosser, and if you're looking for that tactical reroll, there's plenty of money to be made in bossing right now, and Phys Trapper is the premier pick. Overall, it's got insane burst, reasonable durability. There's some choice there if you want to go for a shield or some spell suppression, but overall, its strengths really are clearing bosses quick, literally one hit, and you're going to be flying through the content in the bossing department. So Phys Trapper is my first recommendation if you're looking to make some cash bossing, or if you're looking for something which is just able to smash and one-shot everything in the game. This is also the premier pick for Breachstone carrying right now, so it is definitely a very, very nice one. So overall, I'd recommend taking a look at Cloudy's character over day 1, 2, and 3. You can kind of check that out on PoE Ninja, and I would also check out some of his old VODs, as he was doing a ton of 6-man health Maven carries where he one-shot the boss and instant phased it. So yeah, Phys Trapper, alive, well, awesome, and very powerful. Next up, we have Stellans. So Stellans is kind of in a bit of an interesting place. It's the most played build overall, so its gear is reasonably expensive compared to that of something like a Phys Trapper. It's actually worse at bossing than Phys Trapper, but overall it's a pretty comfortable playstyle. If you enjoy minions and overall you just like the playstyle, absolutely, it's a really strong pick. It takes basically nothing to get going, and the end game gear isn't too insane outside of the clusters, but that's really does where it starts to step up in terms of the actual cost. The clusters and the wands, when you try and get into those, are going to be quite expensive. However, after that, it is actually a pretty damn good, well-rounded build. It's got okay clear, okay bossing, but where it really shines is in Simulacrum farming. So if you're looking to do some Simulacrums or make some cash in there, Stellan Mages is the premier pick. Overall, right now, due to the existence of Deli Mirror farming on Strand, Simulacrums are under an Exalt, and they're only going down more every day. So if you're looking to make some cash and you like the Simulacrum, Stellan Mages Mages might be a pretty good tactical reroll to get absolutely filthy rich. It's fully capable of doing wave 30. You know, it might be a bit rocky without the really good gear, but overall wave 20 is no problem, and even 25 should be cruisy. So overall, Skeleton Mages, very, very powerful, tried, true. There's plenty of guides out there, highly recommend, and it is definitely a powerhouse at clearing Simulacrum with some flexibility to do a few other things. All right, next up, if you're looking to progress the Atlas, this was the pick. EA Explosive Arrow is definitely the most well-rounded build in terms of what it can do. It's fast enough that it's a bit faster than Phys Trapper, and it also has enough boss damage and utility that's a bit better at bossing and doing invitations than Skelly Mages. Overall, it's an incredible pick. About the only thing it's not very good at is doing the new altar farming in maps. It definitely has a few issues with some of the monsters that spawns, but outside of that, you know, Explosive Arrow for actually progressing the Atlas, doing all the invitations, getting your full Atlas tree unlocked, and all of the favorites is definitely a pretty damn good pick. And if you're coming in late, it's definitely a good pickup, as all of the gear is starting to go on fire sale as people start to reroll, as they've already finished their Atlas and they're ready for the next big thing. So if you're still struggling to get through the Atlas, or if you need to, you know, beat out some of the conquerors and finish off your tree, or you're coming late, EA is definitely a good pick. You can pick up all the gear very cheap now, and it is definitely a very good one for getting through the different acts as well as Atlas. So overall, all these things will be in the description below with a link to these PoE ninjas, and all of the things I'm showing here, with the exception of Skeleton Mages, are from content creators, so they'll have guides pretty much associated with them overall. Okay, so we've pretty much covered the bossing side of things with Skeleton Mages and Phys Trapper. Those are the two big builds, and then the next one here is obviously going to be, you know, kind of a bit of a hybrid. Lastly, let's cover the mapping section. So when it comes to mapping on League Start, there's only one real choice right now, which is absolutely head and shoulders above the competition. It can basically do mapping at massive speeds with basically zero investment, and that is Corrupting Fever. As a duelist, you can either go Gladiator or Champion. Champion is the Ruetoo special. He has put out a guide on Zizra's channel, which apparently is quite popular and quite effective. I haven't tried it myself yet, as I'm a fan of the Gladiator, but the Champion does seem to be quite a nice one as well. If you're looking for something that goes fast and is something that can do ults incredibly well with the potential to scale all the way into the end game, Corrupting Fever is your pick. And overall, it can be League started, but it's also fantastic as a second build. It kind of struggles on bosses, both the Champion and the Gladiator, but after you get all that done and out of the way, there is no better character to have as a low budget mapper than a Corrupting Fever character, as it doesn't really take any currency to get going, and it clears at pretty much the speed of an A tier clear speed build. You know, it's pretty much equal to something like a bow character when you get some gear on there, but at a fraction of the cost. So overall, you know, if you're looking for a mapper, your pick probably should be Corrupting Fever. So as I mentioned, there's two different variants. Both of them are great. I'm a bit of a fan of the Gladiator. These are both early builds from both Ruetoo and myself. You can see he's got a lot more uniques on there, so it probably makes it a little bit more, you know, easy to pick up the gear. He's also got a fully written guide out there, so it's probably a bit easier as well. But obviously the Gladiator here, you can kind of cherry pick what I've got here and see what I was kind of using. This is the exact setup I used to farm tier 16 altars and get my headhunter, so it's definitely, you know, tried, true, working. And if you do invest a little bit more time into it, I'd probably recommend going for a shield like Ruetoo does. The 2 wands isn't really necessary, and I'd look for spell suppression, as it's going to make it so that you actually are a lot more durable. But overall, Corrupting Fever pretty much has it all: clear speed, reasonable damage, and access to defense where you need it. So those are kind of the base core builds that I'd be recommending. A close contender is also Poisonous Concoction. A lot of people are having a lot of success on that, but it's not better than EA at progressing the Atlas, and it's not faster than Corrupting Fever for clearing maps. It's kind of just in a, you know, somewhere in between those two builds. It's faster than EA a little bit, you know, with the mapping, but it has less single target. So overall, it's kind of in a weird place. It definitely is good, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a staple. Those are the 4 builds that I'd recommend as tactical rerolls. If you want to kind of, you know, get off your League starter, try something a little bit more powerful, a little bit more tried and true, get through the Atlas. And those are the kind of play styles that I'd recommend them for. Okay, so with all that out of the way, those are are the league starter kind of core builds. All of these builds, with the exception of EA, can scale. So skeleton mages can scale as much as you want, and then later on you can transform that into, for example, an Arakali Spider build. It can scale basically essentially all the way to the moon. When you get something like a Phys Trapper, as Cloudy has done, you can invest an absolutely obscene amount of money into your Phys Trapper and have it just insta-phase every endgame boss in the game. And it is absolutely definitely going to be one of the best bosses in the game, and you can league start it. Crippling Fever, I've skilled it pretty damn hard myself, and it's now in a position where it rivals even some of the fastest builds we're using Omniscience and Headhunter. So overall, those three builds are great. You can take them all the way, invest as much as you want into them, and they will pay dividends. But let's move on to some of the more experimental, exciting, and fresh new takes that are coming out of the community for the end game of Arch Nemesis. So overall, there's two big contenders here, both of them using Omniscience. So Omniscience is a new amulet that drops off the Searing Exarch, and it is an absolute powerhouse and build around unique. And many people are seeing a lot of success with this amulet. Overall, it's still very much in the experimental phase, but there seems to be two offshoots of builds which are starting to emerge as potential new contenders and powerhouses for the end game kind of second or third build category kind of juices. So we're talking about Omniscience on Ranger / Raider Deadeye using bows, and also Omniscience on Lightning Strike, either as a Raider or a Berserker. So let's talk a little bit about the bows first. So traditionally, bows have massive issues with defense and offense. The Omniscience amulet solves that all in one fell swoop, now turning some bow builds into immortal juggernauts, which have like 90% all res, and using some of the new technology on the Forbidden Jewels, you can be almost immortal using flasks and regenerating life. It's absolutely absurd. The streamer Crouching Tuna is using that technology right now, and he was able to literally stand in Cyrus beams. It's ridiculous, it's powerful, and it's definitely something you should be looking into, as it is very, very strong. And that is all using Omniscience as well. So Omniscience gives you tons of resistance damage, and overall it's going to really buffer up the weaknesses of bows, which is what they absolutely needed. Couple that with the bow buffs, as well as the quiver buffs, as well as the new Eldritch items giving bows a lot of much needed defense, and you suddenly have a recipe for an absolute powerhouse of a build. And that's what you're starting to see come together with a lot of people constructing these builds. So overall, it's still a little bit of the Wild West, but you should definitely be following along with these Omniscience builds if you're interested in playing bows. So on the other side of the spectrum, we have Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is almost kind of like the yin to the yang of bows. You're either a bow person or you're a Lightning Strike person. Ever since the death of spells as endgame juicing builds, well, maybe they'll come back with the existence of Ashes of the Stars, but ever since the death of spells like Play Vortex and Winter Orb, it has been Lightning Strike and, bows. Those have been the two premier juicer specs, and it is no different now. And both of these specs are using Omniscience. So here is Kobe's profile. I'm pretty sure this is Kobe, but anyway, he's running the tried and true Berserker. Can also be run as a Raider if you prefer more defense and a simpler playstyle, but overall, both of these builds, all of them are going to be using Omniscience. It is absolutely insane. Again, defense, offense, and absolutely crazy scaling, opening up so many possibilities for your build. Absolutely something you should be looking into, and this does seem to be the end game item of choice for most big end game builds. It scales way too well with Headhunter, as well as physical based weapons, and it also offers you all the defense you could ask for. It's essentially on the power level, from my perspective, of a Mage Blood. Now, of course, it doesn't stop there though. There's plenty of other things in the works, and old favorites are back and here to stay. For example, we still have the Arakali Spider build, kicking and very strong. Many people tending to pick this up. It is absolutely the best Simulacrum farmer out there, and Simulacrums, as I mentioned earlier, are absolutely ridiculous money right now. If you want to get to 100, if you want to get rich, and you want to chill out in some Simus, this is the build you want to work towards. It's absolutely ridiculous how powerful this build is. It's also a very good Delver, and it's pretty respectable in maps as well. Overall, so those are like the three massive massive builds I'd recommend right now. You've kind of got two powerhouse mappers who can also smash the end game in terms of Guardians or anything like that. They're fully capable of that now. And then you also have the absolute powerhouse of Spider build going for the kind of Simulacrum farming as well as delving. So that does really cover most of the content in the game. Of course, we can still expect plenty more innovation, but I think these are the most refined second or third build options we have right now, coming up and coming out of the minds of some of the best people in the game. So overall though, I will kind of highlight a few other things that I've seen in the works. Plenty of other people are starting to pick up stuff like Spark, Winter Orb, and there is a lot of rumblings around how powerful they are with both Omniscience, which we just talked all out about, as well as Ashes of the Stars. So there is definitely more things to experiment with, but as I mentioned, those are kind of the front runners. Arakali Spiders, Omniscience Bows, and Omniscience Lightning Strike. Those are kind of the go-tos, and overall it's going to be pretty powerful. But if you just want something which you can start out with right now, I'd recommend one of the 4 builds I talked about at the start, favoring the 3 which can be scaled further if you're looking for one which you can continue on. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick meta snapshot, giving you a bit of a look at what's strong now as well as what's up and coming. So if you did like, make sure to hit that like button, but until next time, cheers.